Hello, welcome back to southern Sweden, where I am standing in what is rapidly becoming my very own mad scientist's lab here in this big recording studio and art centre we've been building for the last few years. Last week you saw me and Mikey bringing an old Seal Cruise synth back to life. This week I have another patient on the slab. I have a 1976, I believe, EKO Stradivarius, which I believe is a pretty rare old string machine and was literally a barn find. I don't have any footage of it, sadly, in the barn, but one of my neighbours a few months ago casually mentioned, "Oh, I've got an old keyboard lying in the barn, maybe you want to have a look at it, see if you can get it working." And eventually I went up there and wow, look at this thing. It was covered in hay and full of mouse nests. But a couple of weeks ago, one of our volunteers, Rasmus, he had a good go at getting it working, which it did. But since then, there's a few more gremlins. It's kind of very intermittent. And so this week I thought I would try on my own, very inexperienced electronics engineer that I am. I have built guitar amps and stuff before, but always with help. I'm still learning, but I thought I might try and harness the power of AI and see if it can make me into an electronics engineer of sorts. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and fix the gremlins in this thing and see what happens. So yeah, please subscribe if you haven't already. This might be a complete disaster, but yeah, wait till the end to find out what happens. Wish me luck. Okay, this electronic doner kebab looking thing is the EKO Stradivarius. The reason I have it kind of trussed up like this is because, as you might be able to see, there is actually no surface on this thing which isn't just completely encrusted with electronic components. And I thought maybe if I stand it on its end, on this metal thing, which is the only bit of it which doesn't have electronic components on it, and I just kind of clamp it to the ceiling steel beam there, then it won't fall over. I can kind of walk all around it. I can even kind of spin it around a bit. It's on this nice little wheeled trolley thing. So last night I was basically working in this region here, which is the master oscillator section, which basically, as far as I can understand, it basically generates very high frequency noise, which then gets fed into these chips, which are the dividers. So it's kind of more advanced than the fill recorder, which we did a few weeks ago, in that all of the transistors and everything for the dividers are basically built into these chips, which is pretty cool. This is the master chip, I believe. So it starts here, and then it goes to this, and then this spits it out into these. As far as I can follow the schematic, that's the master oscillator section. It all goes into this chip, which then divides it out into these, and then basically you've got all of your different notes. What was happening yesterday was, when it did finally start working again, which was basically just me taking out a few of these chips which didn't seem to be working right, and I just kind of cleaned the legs and sort of squirted some switch cleaner into the sockets. That seemed to really help. Also there was a pot, like a little trim pot, this guy, that was kind of playing up, so I gave that a good clean. Yeah, we'll see today if it's still behaving. But yeah, the next issue is that on the bass section of this, I'm going to turn it on in a second and show you. On the bass section, which is this thing here, when you release a note, it jumps up to the highest note. During the kind of decay of the note, you hear it kind of jump up. Let me see if it works, and I'll show you what I mean. again, it's not working. It's doing the same old thing. Okay, after thinking that we'd fixed the first issue yesterday, I've come in this morning, turned it on, and it's kind of back to how it was, like no notes, just this kind of low thud thing. Why would it be that it would have just kind of broken again overnight?
All right, thanks for your patience. So if it worked yesterday and now it's back to the same SOD situation today, that strongly suggests there's an intermittent or flaky connection somewhere. Basically, something that was making contact yesterday might have shifted or cooled down and lost contact overnight. It could be a cracked solder joint, an oxidized pin, or even a slightly loose connector that's just temperature or vibration sensitive. In short, it's likely not that it broke again in a new way, but that there's an underlying intermittent fault that just reappeared once things cooled down or got moved around. We'll just need to track down that flaky connection and get it nice and solid. Let's dive into that.
Which components would likely do that kind of thing? Like when they cooled down, they would stop working and they just need to warm up again before they start working again?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So the usual culprits for this kind of works when warm, fails when cold scenario are components or joints that are sensitive to temperature changes or mechanical stress. Common suspects, cracked solder joints. This is super common in older gear. A joiner might look fine but have a tiny fracture that opens up when it cools down. When things heat up, metal expands and makes contact again. 2, intermittent connectors, ripped cables, or edge connectors that are a bit oxidized can lose contact when they cool. Just reseating or cleaning them can help. Aging capacitors. In some cases, old electrolytic capacitors can become temperature sensitive. They might work better warm and fail when cold.
There are definitely quite a few solder joints on this thing. Yeah, I guess I need to start testing again this oscillator section that we were testing yesterday to see if that's actually working.
Absolutely, that sounds like a solid plan. When you've got a bunch of solder joints and you've already had that intermittent behavior, giving that oscillator section a little recheck is a great next step.
1, 2, 3.
So if I tell you what the numbers are on the IC, can you tell me what the voltages should be on each of the legs?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to help with that. Just let me know the part number or the label on the IC, and I can definitely give you an idea of what voltages you should expect on each pin. Once I know exactly which chip it is, we can figure out what each leg is supposed to have, and that'll help you confirm if it's working correctly or if there's something off. Just let me know the IC details, and we'll go from there.
Okay, it says 532 and then it says LM566CN.
Ah, perfect. The LM566CN is a voltage controlled oscillator IC, and that's a good clue. So this chip basically generates a frequency based on a control voltage, and knowing the pin out will help us figure out what you should see. For the LM566, here's a quick idea of what you'd expect. Pin 8 is typically the positive supply.
Okay, get ready. Pin 1, minus 12. Pin 2, 0. Pin 3, minus 6.5. Pin 4, minus 12. Pin 5, minus 1.4. Pin 6, 0. Pin 7, minus 5. Pin 8, 0.
Great, thanks for those readings. Let's break that down. For the LM566, the voltages you're seeing give us a few clues. Typically,
Maybe I'll try re-soldering all the legs of the IC.
that sounds like a great plan. Sometimes just a little reflow of those IC legs can fix up any tiny cracks or cold solder joints that might be.
Let's see.
Awesome. Sounds like you've done a nice thorough job there. Let's see what happens now that everything's freshly soldered. Fingers crossed, when you power it up, that oscillator section will spring back to life, and you'll get those notes working properly again. Let me know how it goes once you switch it on.
No such luck, unfortunately. Okay, this diode has minus 5 volts on one side, minus 12 volts on the other side. Okay, ChatGPT has said that I can swap out this transistor with a different one that I have, not the same one, but that they are compatible. I'm not going to trust ChatGPT. I'm going to double check that that is actually true, that I can substitute this transistor for a different one. I think that's sensible. Okay, I've Googled it. Well, actually, this is AI as well, saying that I can substitute it, but I didn't ask it. It wasn't a loaded question, so I think I'm going to trust this. Okay. Well, it works, but is it fixed? Let's try it a few times, turning it on and off. And then we'll check the tuning. Okay. Fuck. Now it works again. Well, I just thought I'd try it again, and it just started working again. I don't dare switch it off. Well, I checked all of those traces, and everything in that area seems to be good. Let me see if I'm getting any voltage on that little trim pot now that it's working. Still working. That's the third one down. Nothing. Is it just too high? Is it going to be a tiny little voltage? There you go. 4.4, so like 0.4 of a volt. Which I guess is that's the bias, right? So that would make sense that it's a tiny little current.
Yeah, absolutely. In this kind of situation, using a 470 microfarad capacitor in place of a 220 microfarad is generally fine, especially if it's just for testing and getting the circuit stable. The main difference is that it might change the timing slightly if it's a timing capacitor, but it's close enough in value that it should let you see if that was the problem.
Sorry to bother you. I'm making some progress with this thing. I just wanted to double check something with you because I don't believe ChatGPT necessarily. I want to swap out one of those old axial capacitors, you know.
On the Stradivarius?
Yeah. Okay, I double checked with Mikey. Probably best if I get the same value for the long run. This is actually slightly under value according to the schematic. It should be 250. But I will try this 470 just temporarily. I'll leave it in there just for testing. And if it works well after that, then I know that capacitor is the problem. Okay, after I think quite a few hours now of just tinkering around with it, trying different things, like changing out this capacitor and what else did I do? I took out all the chips, I cleaned them all, nearly broke the legs off of one of them, which was a bit scary. But yeah, did that. Somehow I stumbled upon the fact that if I touch this pin, which is pin number 5 of this little 8-leg chip there, if I touch it with the multimeter probe, the organ basically comes to life. It's working now, but look. Turn it on, and it's just dead. You just hear this kind of like, you just hear a very faint thud. But if I touch this, just touch that leg, No, it's not working. But if I just touch this leg, it starts working again. I don't know. That chip. The chip must be broken, right? What goes onto leg 8 of that chip? Sorry, not leg 8, leg 5. Maybe that's what I need to find out. What goes onto leg 5 of that chip? I might just order another chip just to have it, see if I can find one, a replacement. Well, probably jinxing it here, but I think I fixed it. It was this chip. I changed this little capacitor as well, but that didn't help it. I just cleaned this chip again, and I reseated it a little bit better in its little holder. It was super weird that it was just working if ever I kind of poked that pin. But now, probably it's not going to work now, but there you go. It's just on. It just works. It makes that noise when you turn it on. So that is, I don't know, bloody weird. I mean, this thing literally has been sort of lying in a damp barn for I don't know how long, so it's kind of a miracle that it works at all, really, and definitely a miracle that it isn't in kind of more rough shape. But the next thing I want to try and do is fix that kind of weird thing where it jumps up. And I'm going to follow ChatGPT's advice, and I'm going to look for those capacitors. Okay, I spent way too long trying to fix the kind of hanging bass note thing. It involved, I don't know, it was so tedious that I didn't really film any of it. It was just many hours of me kind of tearing my hair out a bit, but I checked. I still don't fully understand how it works, but I got a pretty good idea that basically the way that all this diode matrix thing works, it'll give priority to the highest note that you play in the bass section. It kind of basically means that the highest note is always playing, but usually that that voltage is drained to ground, and so it sort of disappears. Whereas what's happening at the moment is it's not fully draining to ground, and so it always just kind of hangs there, and that's why you can always hear it a little bit in the background. I was just checking, basically just checking the resistance of the kind of bus bar here. I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. Anyway, whatever. We ended up, by we I mean me and ChatGPT, we ended up, I think, figuring out that it's quite likely that it's this chip here that's at fault. So that's 2 chips that I need to find now. This one here, which, as we know, seems to be slightly iffy. If I poke it, then it starts again. If I poke that pin in particular with the multimeter, only seems to really work with that, then it all starts working. And now this other chip down here. I think what this is all kind of leading me towards is that I should take this to my new guy I've found in Malmo, who's clearly brilliant at fixing things, or at least he said he's good at finding obscure components. So I think we need to bring in a human into this little team. Can't be just me and ChatGPT. But what have I learned so far? It always seems to try to stay sort of like upbeat and kind of positive. It'll say things that aren't quite true, but just because they sound kind of optimistic. And like a few times it was telling me to test stuff for a certain reason, and then once I kind of got my head around what was going on, I realized that the reason that it said we should test the thing didn't make any sense, because whatever, it was a different voltage than what ChatGPT said on that rail. It was saying this is a ground thing, and then after a while I would look again at the schematic and I would think, no, this is minus 24 volts. And then I would say that to ChatGPT, and then it would say, oh yes, you're right, well spotted. You know, there's lots of things like that, which I guess maybe that is the same as if you're working with another human being as well, but maybe with a human being that didn't really know very much. Anyway, so the last thing that's up with this is that the crescendo and the sustain faders don't do anything. Another thing that's wrong with this, but it would be really cool to try and fix that. So I'm going to try that next. I don't know if you really want to see me talking more to ChatGPT. It's kind of embarrassing, and I actually stopped talking to it because it gets really annoying when you have it on talking mode. It gets really annoying. You say something to it, and then you start working on whatever it is that it said to do, and then suddenly it will start talking again, just randomly, and the voice is super annoying. I need to change that voice. Anyway, yeah. I'm going to have a go at this. I mean, I think probably people are going to be watching this and thinking, what the fuck? Why are you trying to work on this extremely difficult thing? Why don't you just stick to, a fuzz pedal or something? Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I'm never one to kind of shy away from a challenge. And I know this is very early days for this kind of thing. And I also know that it kind of sucks if this technology means that like actual really experienced electronics engineers don't get as much work. So that's not cool. So maybe this is all just not cool, and I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be even spreading the idea that you can do this. But it's more just I just want to learn. I really want to learn this stuff. Maybe I can do a kind of mini apprenticeship or something. Anyway, right. Let's see. I'm not going to show me talking to ChatGPT anymore. I'm just going to try and fix this, and then I'll let you know how I get on in just 1 second, like jumping right now. Okay, the first thing that ChatGPT told me to do was to check to see if these pots were good, and they're both knackered. So that's definitely a potential cause. So to be honest, I think I'm just going to pause here on the electronic thing. I've kind of had my fill of electronics for this week. So I thought I might now switch to the case. I mean, at least it works. It works as long as I can poke that little chip every time I turn it on. Maybe I can build that into the case somehow, like a little poke hole. I don't know, we'll see. So the case, this is how it arrived. It's kind of 3/4 of a case. It has a bottom and a back and one end, and it has a top which is over here somewhere. Here's the top. The top has definitely seen better days. But it's the end that is the big glaring missing piece. So I went looking in the workshop for something to make new ends out of, and I found these last bits of the old cinema chairs, these kind of leftover pieces, which is very beautiful wood and actually fits kind of rather perfectly to make new ends. So There's two of them here. They have a few holes in, which maybe isn't such a problem. So my current plan is that I'm gonna cut out some new ends, maybe plane them a bit thinner because they're quite chunky. Maybe that doesn't look quite so cool. And then I will stain them as dark as possible and French polish them. And then I will figure out a way to I think I should keep the case, and I think I should try and clean this up and bring it back to life, just so there is a bit of the kind of original case left. I mean, it's completely rusty on these, which is probably beyond saving, but yeah, maybe it's fine without those. We'll see. Maybe this is a long-term project. All right, let's see what happens. I'll cut out some ends. Okay, so pretty happy with this, suitably kind of gothic and spooky looking. It's Sunday afternoon, I have to edit this video, and there's basically no way I'm going to get this thing totally fixed. There's still too many question marks. I need to investigate finding some replacement chips and faders. But what have I learned this week with my adventures using AI to try and fix this? Well, it certainly wasted a lot of time. It led me down the garden path a few times, but at the same time it gave me confidence to attempt it, and it definitely explained things to me that were correct and helped me learn more about how this thing works. And it's a lot to ask of technology which, even though it's very impressive, is very new. I actually watched the new South Park episode yesterday, or one of the new ones, and it was kind of quite appropriate somehow, the fact that it really does try to make you feel like you're on the right track all the time. It's very sort of positive leaning, which I just think isn't, I don't know, I can see why they've kind of trained it like that, but I think that's really kind of dangerous. I think it's going to waste a lot of time. It's going to give people kind of, yeah, like this sort of emperor's new clothes type thing. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to imagine the future. You know, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back together for the thumbnail. You heard it working earlier, so you know what it sounds like. It's going to be hard for me to put it back together and then play it, because I always need to kind of poke that little chip which is going to be buried inside. So I'll put it back together for the thumbnail, and then I think I'll take it to my new pal down in Malmo to to kind of finish fixing it, because he knows what he's doing. But I'll put this down to experience, and it was fun, and it made me feel like an electronics engineer, even if a fake one, for 5 minutes. Alright, this might have been quite a long video, so thanks very much for sticking to the end. Cut now to me putting this all back together, and I will see you next week for another video. Until then, lots of love, look after each other, and goodbye.